Male pattern baldness. It didn't stop any of these 11 men from shaping history in one way or another. Hi, I'm Robert of hairlossdaily.com, and man, my acne is flaring up today. This post isn't about that, though. It's about the Bald Hall of Fame, the 11 greatest bald men of all time. They serve as inspirations to all of us, remind us that we are ultimately judged by our contributions to society and not by the density of our hairlines. I wanted to make this a fun list with some modern, famous bald celebrities that everyone will know, along with historical figures who have shaped our lives, whether we know it or not. The parameters for entry into my Bald Hall of Fame are fairly straightforward, and loose, quite frankly. A person must have had an advanced balding pattern on the Norwood scale. You know the Norwood scale. You talked about it with maybe your hair loss doctor, maybe your psychiatrist too. We all know what that is. I'll make a video on it later, though. In other words, the person to be considered, they have to be a very bald man. They also must have made significant contributions to our world and or to their bald brethren. And that's really about it. I should have a third parameter, but I don't. Let's get started. The 11 greatest bald men of all time, in no particular order. Number 11, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was the primary leader in the Indian independence movement of the 1930s and 40s. Trained as an attorney, he gave powerful speeches and organized peaceful demonstrations to rally his supporters and prompt political revolution. Gandhi influenced countless leaders of future generations, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Cesar Chavez. Clearly, he was too busy fighting on behalf of his people and humanity to worry about his own baldness. He did 4 stints in jail, where presumably having hair is an asset. Presuming having no hair is an asset. Can I read today? You'd rather not have hair in jail because it makes you more manly and they want more feminine. Yeah, you get what I'm talking about. He was a fasting proponent, Gandhi, which is not recommended if you're concerned about hair loss, by the way. Crash diets are bad. Moving on. Number 2, Larry David. Okay, he's not exactly a revolutionary, and he's probably not going to be in the history books anytime soon, but his association with the bald community, a phrase he coined, cannot be overlooked. In his seminal classic television show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, David actively fought discrimination against bald people on numerous occasions. He fires a toupee-wearing chef in one episode, and he openly admits that he prefers to hire bald professionals over non-professionals. He proclaims his love for his bald brothers on multiple occasions, and he's also famous, of course, for the most popular sitcom of all time, Seinfeld, which features arguably the greatest sitcom character of all time, George Costanza, who also happens to be bald. So Larry David is the man. Number 3, Michael Jordan. He's perhaps the greatest athlete ever. He single-handedly inspired a generation of balding men to embrace their genetics and shave it off like a man, or shave it be, as Joe Rogan sometimes says. Hair just gets in the way when you're looking to dunk a basketball from the free throw line, or humiliate Patrick Ewing in the paint, or win 6 world titles. Made him more aerodynamic. At his best, Jordan was superhuman, with a Norwood 6 or 7 pattern to boot. So that's just all there is to it. He's the man. Number 4, William Shakespeare. He had rocked the bald on the top and long on the sides look, which is not, a recommended look in most cases. David Crosby is like someone that comes to mind who employs that these days. It's not advised, but you were forced to read some of his plays, I'm sure, in high school because he's the most famous writer of all time, but people don't really read anymore. So if you're a millennial, you probably breeze through some of the key plot lines on Spark Notes or whatever they use these days. He had the long hair on the back, long hair on the sides and back, as I said, which to kind of compensate for the lack of hair elsewhere. Despite being dead for 4 centuries, old Billy still makes women of all ages tingle in their nether regions with his stunning and occasionally kinky verses. Fun facts, many assert Shakespeare was nothing but a common thief who stole his famous works from one of his contemporaries, and upon his death, the only thing he bequeathed to his beloved wife, I guess not so beloved, was his second best bed, whatever that means. Number 5, Jeff Bezos. Simply, Jeff Bezos is the most influential and successful bald business person on the planet. Known for his meticulous nature and Sunday memos, Bezos guided Amazon.com to unprecedented levels of success and recognition in the online realm. You can find almost anything on Amazon, including Rogaine, derma rollers, laser combs, saw palmetto, and a wide variety of other hair loss treatments. Anything you need, Jeff's got you covered. He has no interest in using any of those products for himself. Well, it's too late for him, honestly. But even if he if were earlier in his life, I'm sure he wouldn't have been interested either, because that's just how he rolls. I don't think he's the type that's fazed by his hair loss. There have been studies that show that men would prefer having hair over more money, but Jeff Bezos is an exception to that rule, obviously, and a good example to all of us. Money is more important than hair, I believe. Though if you do have a lot of money, you can just say goodbye to baldness forever, theoretically, like Jeff's bald buddy. Is his buddy? Is it his buddy? I don't know. Elon Musk. He was like a Norwood 4. Now he's just fine. Moving on. Bruce Willis. He was a balding action star before being a balding action star was cool. And in doing so, he paved the way for countless balding men to thrive in Hollywood, a town that has been notoriously prejudiced against balding men who suffer from premature hair loss. And they still are, just to a lesser extent, and that's mostly thanks to Willis. Would you have like a Vin Diesel or The Rock without Bruce Willis? I don't think so. He was the guy who did it all and was the man before any of those guys came along. So Bruce paved the way for all those balding guys that followed. He was the pioneer. Whether you're a basketball champion like Jordan or an action hero, hair is an unnecessary hindrance. Bruce is living proof that you or someone like you can become a masculine, handsome, charismatic, bald, popular movie star. You don't even have to be a good actor anymore to be a successful bald actor, to be a successful movie star. Just look at Vin Diesel. Number 7, Charles Darwin. Darwin's On the Origin of Species is one of the greatest achievements in human history. The godfather of evolution, Darwin inspired some of our greatest minds and has aggravated religious zealots for generations. Like many men, Darwin suffered from severe male pattern baldness, and can be seen in nearly all of his portraits from the age 31 onward. And he did what most men facing similar circumstances do. He grew an awesome beard. Yes, the bald and bearded book has always been fashionable. Whether you're a scientist, athlete, or a dedicated and disgusting white supremacist, bald and bearded just works. It's a proven fact. Number 8, Winston Churchill, one of my favorites. The main reason we're not all living under Nazi rule, arguably. Led the British people through the most turbulent and violent period in modern history, widely regarded as the greatest Brit of all time and the man who saved Europe. Churchill loved danger and excitement. Even as a heavy-set, bald, indispensable man in his 60s, he would stand on the rooftops during the Blitz so he could get a better view of the destruction below. He liked to drink, he loved cigars, he read voraciously. He was one of the greatest orators of all time. Of his many inspirational quotes, this is one maybe of particular interest to us, given that this is a hair loss channel. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. You have an opportunity, I guess, to be a better, more resilient, and more confident person as a result of hair loss. At least that's one way to look at it. That's the way Churchill would look at it. Number 9, James Gandolfini. All right, this is a controversial one again, I'm sure. He was a ferocious actor, and Gandolfini was an inspiration to heavy-set balding men throughout the U.S. and world. He proved once and for all that you can be a fat, balding, and handsome devil all at the same time. What was his secret? Charisma, of course. If you don't let your baldness or weight bother you, it won't bother anybody else. Gandolfini was also a stylish dresser, albeit in a Jersey Shore kind of way. And this greatly enhanced his overall image and appeal. His slick back hair always looked fantastic too, even though he was challenged follically. He made the most of what he had. Women loved him, men envied him. We're all sad we don't get to watch him act anymore. The man was just a force of nature. Number 10. Mikhail Gorbachev, is that how you say Mikhail? I should know that. I wrote this article a long time ago, and I should know how to pronounce that. Gorbachev, I know that part. Tear down his wall. So along with Reagan and the Pope, Gorbachev is credited for helping end the Cold War, bringing a peaceful period to U.S.-Russia relations. Obviously, that peaceful period has kind of ceased these days. We got Trump and Putin, both have interesting hair situations going on. But going back to that era, relations were a lot more favorable. A Nobel Peace Prize winner, Gorbachev ordered Soviet troops to withdraw from Afghanistan, and he helped bring down the Berlin Wall, as I said. He also called the current Russian president and fellow bald man Vladimir Putin an obstacle to global progress. Many dead Russian journalists have made similar statements about Putin, so even at 85, this is a couple years ago, so he's probably 88 now. Is he still alive? I think he's still alive. Gorbachev is still as courageous and vital as ever. He never let his baldness or his prominent port wine stein stop him from making an impact on society and the world. Number 11. Dwight D Eisenhower. Perhaps the baldest president in modern history. Dwight D Eisenhower has far too many accomplishments to list here, but we'll name a few. One of the most distinguished generals in U.S. history, he was a supreme commander of the Allied forces in Western Europe during World War II, in charge of planning the D-Day invasion. Eisenhower delivered a famous, inspirational yet solemn speech on the eve of D-Day, informing his men that the eyes of the world were upon them and telling them to accept nothing less than full victory. The operation was ultimately successful in spite of the massive number of casualties, enabling the Allies to advance into Europe and eventually take control of the continent. Eisenhower also crafted a speech in the event the mission was unsuccessful, and in that speech he blamed the failure that hypothetical failure on himself alone. That's pretty masculine. He just took all that responsibility on himself in the event of a failure. As president, his many accomplishments include signing the Civil Rights Bill of 1957, as well as the Highway Act of 56, which gave birth to the national highway system. He helped end the Korean War and started the space race, and he kept America at peace during the Cold War. So I guess that kind of covers it for now. The one that I didn't include, that I regret not including and I should make in addition there, is Hunter S. Thompson. He's rocked that cul-de-sac bald look like the 60s onward, and he just never let that slow him down for a second. A lot of people would let that bother them and maybe shave their head or take a different approach. He just rocked that horseshoe, and it looked pretty awesome on him for whatever reason. It didn't faze him at all. I think that's the ultimate moral here. If it doesn't affect you, if you're good with it, other people will be good with it too. And that's what we can learn from these famous, great, bald men of history. That concludes this video. Thanks for watching. I'm Robert of hairlossdaily.com, and I'll catch you next time.